Ready? Is everybody else?
Yep.
Born ready.
All right. Let me get my
I love a good
soundboard
Western.
up here. We are starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the RPG After Years, your weekly show covering all things RPGs from the past, present, and future. I'm Scott.
And I'm Jay.
And with us today is our legacy host.
It's me, old time Bill.
We also have a very special guest today. It's one of our absolute faves. It's Punch Drunk Dave. Say hi, Dave.
Hello.
Glad to have you.
Hi, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, Dave.
We're going to talk to him more in just a second. This is episode 39, and today we are finishing our review of the 1997 PS1 quote-unquote cult classic, Wild Arms.
Cult classic.
It is cold.
All right. Since it's a review, we won't be doing any catch-up or news or anything like that. Today, we will be covering the gameplay as well as our final ratings. But first, we have Punch Drunk Dave on here today. He's one of our longtime listeners, well, for a while now anyway. And he's also one of our patrons. And we've decided that we want to try to have guests on a little more often, which is something we just never do in general, unless you count Corey. But
He doesn't count.
Yep. Dave nominated Wild Arms was his RPG Club nomination, and he really loves Wild Arms, I think. So we're gonna take a minute here to get to know him a little bit better. This is like the awkward icebreaker at every like group retreat or work meeting or whatever. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I live in Wisconsin, and we have snow already today in October.
Wow.
I'm just
But-
right over the lake. We're gonna have it soon.
Yep. So not looking forward
Winter
to
is
that.
coming.
Yep. But no, I stumbled across the RPG podcast through UFF and New Clan. I think Bill did a couple guest episodes on UFF or review episodes.
I did some reviews for UFF.
Yep.
I reviewed some of the mobile games with Crinatol and Jake.
Oh
Yep.
my God, you did do that.
That's what it was. So then,
Yeah, I
I never
forgot
listened to
about that
I
now.
never
That was
listened
my-
to those episodes, by the way. Never.
That was my first foray into podcasting. That's what gave me the bug.
This training.
yeah, but it was those episodes that I don't know how I stumbled across the podcast, but I knew the voice sounded familiar, so I figured I would give it a listen to, and I enjoyed it, so I kept listening.
There's a lot
And
of
then it's all
crossover.
spiraled down and
For better or for worse, there is a lot of crossover between our communities, but I'm glad you found us that way. That's one good
Yeah.
thing. So actually, I forgot about this until just now, but wasn't RPG Club like your idea or
Yeah,
suggestion?
I suggested it. I saw another Twitter account. Something came up on Twitter where someone else was doing something similar, and I thought that would be a good idea for the community of the RPG After Years to do. It would just make sense for all of us to be playing the same game at the same time, so we could, discuss it and kind of go through it together. So
It was a great idea. I don't know why we didn't think
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Was it the RPG book club by chance that you found?
yes, I
Yeah.
believe that's what it was, and I like that because it would introduce the games, and you'd be able to play it at kind of a slower pace. You wouldn't have to be playing it, beat it as fast as you can. I like the sections that we have.
It does make it feel like you can actually finish the game one day.
Yes.
I think having
Yep.
deadlines is definitely important for us.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mine were all on the last day of the deadline. It seemed like is when I was finishing my section.
That's also, unfortunately, I also procrastinated until it was 6 a.m. on a Sunday when I had to record.
Didn't you do that like 2 or 3 times on the sections?
Yes.
I think I missed one section and I was late for it, and then I got my strike. Then after that, it was just like
I
no,
missed
I'm
one. I
clearing
got
them out
one
in the
strike.
first week.
Yeah, I think
First
I
week,
think I
I'm
was,
clearing up the game, then I'm playing something else.
I was late on 2 of them, and then I think the final one I beat the day before the deadline.
Nice.
Yeah,
So-
the RPG Club was a fantastic idea. First of
It
all,
really
so
was.
thank you for that suggestion. Because not only is it like it's technically easier content for the podcast, like a lot of topics that we have and a lot of content we have to like spend a lot of extra time, like digging into our brains, like what's a good thing for us to talk about that's like entertaining. With the RPG Club, it's like okay, we can play games, have content to talk about it. Like every other episode, and then also it's gonna give us a review, and plus community activity.
Yeah, it allows the community to be a part of the review, which is nice.
Yep.
So, why did you choose Wild Arms as your nomination?
Well, Wild Arms was a game that I played way back in, God, it might have been middle school or early high school. And it was a game I had just very fond nostalgia for. It reminded me a lot of Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo. And I don't know if I beat it back then, but it's one that I just always held like a special place. And I had fond memories of. So I figured I'd nominate it, and I was kind of surprised that everyone voted for it for the first game.
Yeah, I think it's like a well-regarded RPG just in general. Like I was even interested in playing it just because I had heard such good things about it.
So I do want to say first of all that the mean things I do say, I do not mean them in an insulting way.
No, the game has flaws. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
When was the last time you played it before this?
It probably was high school. I bet so. Probably close to 15, 20 years ago. I bet was the last time.
This is definitely a game I wish I would have discovered at 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yep.
Because I certainly would have enjoyed it a lot more at that age, and would probably have very similar fond memories. Because I mean, I've gone back and played like I would say Final Fantasy VII was kind of the same way. Like I looking back, it's like, oh my God, this was amazing. I loved it. And then every time I play like the original now, I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah.
Vehicles.
There's lots of games. It's kind of like that. So, I mean, just in general, how did you feel revisiting it? Like, did it change your feelings about the game or anything like that? Or do you still love it as much as ever?
Yeah, it changed a little bit. I think I liked it a lot more back 15, 20 years ago.
Me too.
I still enjoyed playing it this time. It was a lot of fun, but the storyline was confusing at times. And there were, I don't know, some of the dungeons I did not remember being as difficult, layout-wise, just being confusing. And then having the random battles occur just a little too often would, throw you off, or at least in my case, I'd forget where I was going. I'd get out of a battle and be like, was I going to the left or was I going to the right?
There were a couple dungeons that were really bad about that.
Yeah. And then when you throw in the puzzles, when you're trying to do a puzzle and then you get hit with the random encounters, it was a little frustrating. But I did enjoy playing it, and I'm glad that I finished it finally.
So with the RPG club, I'm curious, and this was something I was thinking about a little while ago, but I always forgot to talk about it on the podcast. Do you feel like playing it with a group and like hearing us talk about our opinions, like within each section, might have influenced, like we might have influenced each other or influenced how other people feel about the game, as opposed to if they were just playing it by themselves and didn't have that like I don't know. It's kind of the concept of like whenever you hear somebody say like, oh, this is kind of garbage, like you're kind of more likely to think that it's garbage as well as if you just experienced it completely fresh.
Possibly. I guess what you were saying earlier about had you played it back when you were 12, 13, I think that made a huge difference of why I enjoyed it so much back then, as I wasn't overly critiquing the game while I was playing it. Back then, as opposed to now replaying it, you're trying to give it some sort of critical analysis while also trying to enjoy what you're playing. But you notice the things you don't like and you notice the good things about the game. But yeah, back in middle school when I played it, it just seemed like I didn't follow a guide. It was pure exploration. I played it as far as I played it, and I just remember it being I think I enjoyed it more back then than now.
It's interesting. The example that comes to mind for me is like Final Fantasy VII. Many people think that is like one of the greatest RPGs of all time, if not the greatest, and I still really, really love that game. But if you go and show it to somebody who's used to more modern games now, they're like, what is this hot garbage, just from looking at it? So,
yep.
So you didn't get to be on part one of this review, which was basically just covering the story point by point. So I thought I'd give you a little section here to go over like just your general thoughts on the story, like what were your favorite scenes or favorite characters or things you didn't like, that kind of thing.
Well, I think my favorite characters in the game were actually the Quarter Knights, the bad guys. I like that there was a group of like enemies that were they were more unique than the three main characters, I thought.
I actually agree with
you. Rudy, Jack, and Cecilia, they just felt like cookie cutter RPG characters. You just kind of they all had basic emotions, I guess. I don't know, they didn't feel as unique as other characters in games like Final Fantasy III or Earthbound or some of the other games in that era. And the storyline I liked, but like I said, it was confusing. There were times where I was wondering what exactly was the objective that the enemies were actually trying to accomplish. Like what was their ultimate goal?
Take over the world and then destroy the world, and then take over the world and then destroy the world.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's sometimes
use Genova.
Yeah.
I agree. Actually, I thought it was really cool how those villains were like characterized and they were sort of present from beginning to end.
This game does have some of the best like villains for this kind of genre, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it was neat to have Jack and Lady Harkin. I liked how they were rivals too. I don't know if Rudy and Cecilia had one.
I wouldn't really say rivals, but
no, Rudy was just a robot.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't remember.
She was just a princess who didn't want to be just a princess.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that sort of wraps up, sort of our get to know you thing here. So let's move on to the save state of the podcast. Jay, you said you wanted to skip this?
Unless we can blow through it fast.
Okay, let's blow through it fast.
Let's blow through it fast, baby.
All right, guys. The RPG After Years is a pretty wild Patreon for you all. Dave, since you are an actual patron, which we truly, truly appreciate, I thought I might let you tell the listeners about it.
Well, I give my hard-earned cash each month so I can get early episode access, ad-free episodes, the aftercasts, which I think you guys are due for an episode now, aren't you?
It's getting about time, I
Probably.
think.
Yeah.
Ooh, we had two in a row. It's fine.
Okay, yeah. So extra reviews, and then the RPG Club nominations, along with the ability to vote for those nominations, and much more if you are a Patreon.
Which you can find at patreon.com/RPG Afteryears. Do you feel
So
like you get your money's worth?
Yeah, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I wanted to actually contribute to a couple of the ones that I liked. So I chose this one, and I think UFF, or not UFF, Nude Clan is the other one that I'm a Patreon of.
You're a valued patron and community member.
So I do want to thank you really quick for your patronage. It's not only like really awesome to see that people are enjoying our content enough for that, but it's also incredibly humbling. So thank you for your patronage and for being so active and hanging out with us, talking with us, listening to us. It's kind of a strange thing for me to think back on every now and then. It's like people listen to me talk about games.
I wonder
We
this
have
all
a
the time. Why
community.
does anybody care about what video games I'm playing? But here we are. Speaking of interacting with the community, we are live on Twitch. You can find us at twitch.tv/RPG Afteryears. We are normally live Sundays at 9 a.m. We've been having some scheduling issues lately that kind of complicate that. But just keep an eye out.
Bill's the scheduling issue.
It's hard to find a time where us Americans and British people can commiserate together and actually get something
It's
done.
1 a.m.
And also, this episode is also like heavily related to the RPG Club. For those that haven't gathered, it's a book club for RPGs. The next game for the club is Neir Automata. I believe when this episode releases to the public, we will have officially kicked that off. And so you have until November 8th to beat the Flooded City Recon story mission. That's in Route A. And then we'll update you as we all proceed along those lines. I'm excited for it. Are you going to be playing Automata with us, Dave?
Yeah, I think I got it on Steam. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that. I haven't played like a new game in quite a while.
Let me tell you
Me
something real quick about Steam before you end up Google searching it. The Steam version of Neir Automata does not let you go full screen.
What's
Really?
What's the alternative then? A window?
You can, yeah, it's just like a window. You can see everything in the background. It's like a fixed window. And
that's
I'm like,
bizarre.
this is like, you can apparently go mod it to allow you to go full screen. But yeah, just warning.
Weird.
Well, hopefully that won't be an issue for too many people. Hopefully we're all.
It's an issue for
savvy
me.
enough. Yeah. But with all that out of the way, we're going to take a quick break before we move on to the review. Anybody need to run to the loo or anything?
No,
No,
sir.
good.
Nope.
I'm starving though.
I actually scarfed down dinner after I got off work before this, but that's
I have to say though, your transition noise, that little ring, I used to have that for my text message noise. So when I would listen to the podcast, there were a lot of times where I would check my phone thinking I got a text message.
That's like when you're watching Twitch or something and somebody like talks to Alexa. It's like,
We should change it to where it's the Facebook Messenger app ding, and like everybody's gonna be like checking
just the standard iPhone text message noise or something.
Oh, good stuff.
All right, here we go. Alrighty, let's get on to part 2 of our Wild Arms review. Next up, it's gameplay. Okay, so where to start here? I guess general synopsis of everything. The game has like a 2D overworld and 3D battles. The battles kind of look like shit, but we'll get there. In the overworld, it's like very generic RPG stuff. You are exploring towns, buying shops, or buying stuff from shops. In the dungeons, you get sort of like old school Zelda style dungeons, I guess, where you have to, navigate your way through and solve puzzles to make your way to the end.
Use the tools that you pick up.
Right. Which it sort of has, we'll get to that too, but it's sort of like the trope in Zelda where you get these items that are useful like once or twice and then never again. In the battles, it's traditional turn-based. You've got your stats, HP, damage. You've got 3 characters most of the time. You just sort of trade blows with enemies. And that is like just the general overview. It's pretty traditional RPG, especially old school RPG type deal here. So diving into from there, on the overworld, you've got a top-down 2D sprite view, although apparently it's in full 3D on the remake. Although I touched on this, it kind of looks like shit. I think even the sprite style looks better here. You can switch between the 3 characters at any time, and you have to do that a lot to use your different tools and stuff. But I thought that was a kind of a cool feature. I like when RPGs let you, choose which character you're playing as in the overworld. A lot of them don't, for whatever reason. You've got your towns. So just in general, I'm going to throw it to Jay, I guess. How did you feel about just the town exploration? There's plenty of towns in this game.
Yeah, I thought all of that was really good. And as like a semi spoiler for the future, I think like pretty much everything outside of the story, I was really happy with this. So yeah, towns, I felt really good. I thought the general layout of the towns and the overworld and everything in general definitely better than pretty much all of the 2D Final Fantasies, if not most Final Fantasy games, especially in that 2D, almost going into 3D.
Yeah, they kind of stuck with the old sort of SNES style, didn't they, of sprite work when it came to the towns and dungeons, everything outside of battles, basically, but using the capabilities of the PlayStation 1. And they did a really, really nice job of it.
I think so. One thing that I hated with, old school Pokemon games and old school Final Fantasy games, you walk into a village and there's like 1 building, 2 buildings. It's like, this isn't a village. This is like a valley with a house.
Yeah, how is this village being populated? They must be very incestuous.
It is Professor Oak and my mom.
But he's not my dad.
The towns are pretty big, although I do have one complaint. They're in like, I don't know if I'm just like stupid or if I'm drunk too much or whatever, but
both.
Yes. I found like that. I got lost in the towns a lot. Like I would be like, "Where is the damn shop?" Like I
did too. Yeah, I did too. There's one where the guide was telling me like, you have to go find so and so. They're in the top, like they're in the northwest corner of the town. And I'm like searching all over. I'm like, I have no idea how to get to the northwest corner of the town. You apparently have to like go down and around. And I'm like, some of them were definitely confusing.
I generally started off every town and I went off to the left and then just worked my way around. I found that was quite a good tactic. But I didn't really get lost too much in the towns. I thought they were all right. Maybe Adelheid. I always got confused as to what the building on the left was. I think it was
which one? Where is Emma? Which building is that?
Yeah. I eventually learned Adelheid.
Right.
But there were a couple towns where it's like it didn't matter how many times I went there, I would never be able to find where certain things were.
Not too many of them were very unique. Like you said, they were large and expansive, but none of them really stuck out as like I don't think I could name one besides the Adelheid.
Come on, you got Port Timney, you got Baskar, you got.
I like Braska because that was like an Indian. That was like an Indian village. Wasn't
Native American.
That was probably
Native
the most
American.
One.
Sorry. I'm not American.
Traversing the towns with the sprint function, I really liked. For some reason that was just fun, sprinting everywhere.
That's top of my list here. Things to talk about is the sprinting and the running, because they had that same mechanic in Alandra, and it was great. And I don't know why that is not caught on and been in every other RPG since. Like, there's the run function.
It should be the standard.
But the sprint is just like brilliant. Having that thing where you sort of you get used to it and you learn just the right moment to let go, push it again, so you sort of slide around corners like drifting.
Yep.
It's just so much fun. It just adds that extra little bit to it rather than just running everywhere.
I definitely prefer it over like the games that have sprinting, but you have to like sit there and tap it. Like just tapping it the whole time. Like, oh, this is annoying.
That's what I was trying to do at the very beginning of the game before I figured out you gotta hold the damn button.
You gotta charge him up.
Yeah,
you got to charge him up and let him go.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I think I totally didn't write anything about running down here.
Oh, that's top of my list. It's just like it's same with
Elandra.
It's just
was
like,
one of my
this
favorite
is great.
features.
Like why? This was on 2 big selling RPGs on the PlayStation 1, and yet it just never seemed to catch on.
Right.
I would have freaking absolutely loved that in Final Fantasy 6 and Final Fantasy 3, like the actual 6 and 3. Like
I would have liked it in 10, but you'd only go forward.
Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 3 you could get an accessory that would make you faster.
Could you? Oh man, I remember playing that and just being like, oh.
Yeah, you'd have to.
5, it's one of the abilities.
Shoes, wouldn't you?
So you have to actually use an ability slot to run to move faster, and I hated that. But that's a totally another subject.
Still, it's not quite the same as sprinting.
Yeah.
You know?
No, yeah, like
one.
Like Bill, you mentioned drifting around corners while letting go and then hitting it again. It just made it just a little more fun to travel through the dungeons and the towns.
And the way you could move the directional pad to where it was like diagonal, like you're pressing the up and the left at the same time, could prevent you from crashing into
walls and stuff.
We'll get to the mini games in just a little bit, but that one where you have to race around the course, that like trained me for the castle escape, which is not long after that.
I'm glad I did a bit of that mini game because that did train me for the castle thing, and it was just like when I got to the castle thing, I was like, oh my god, I wish I'd done more of that mini game.
I had to look up a YouTube video to figure out what path I had to take for that freaking running.
I did too, and it still took me about a dozen tries.
Yeah,
I was really pissed off because I did it twice and then failed, and I was like, well, I don't understand what I've got to do. I didn't realize you had to talk to the chef.
Yep.
I just assumed if I talked to anyone, that was it, game over. And I did it twice, and then and that doesn't even count the 20 times I failed at doing it. But and then finally, it's just like I had to look on the guide, like talk to the chef at the end. Fuck.
Right. So moving on to the dungeons here. I felt there were some decent ones, but a lot of them, like I feel like the puzzles were like really uninspired, and it wasn't like, I don't know, nothing about I liked that there were puzzles to solve, but I didn't really find it to be many of them to be particularly like memorable or inspiring.
Well, the puzzles seemed very good till the end. I found like the end couple of dungeons were actually very, very fun when it came to the puzzles, but it's because they made good use of the tools. It was the tools that made this game and the dungeoneering part of this game fun.
I agree. So anytime the characters had to split up, awesome dungeon. Like especially the what dungeon was it? The one where they're in prison, where they're all locked up. Yeah, Pandemonium. That
plays Hapan.
Absolutely my favorite dungeon to do in that, because you had to like get one person up to a point to unlock the next person to unlock the next person. And don't go and fight Zed with just Rudy because he'll freaking annihilate you. You got to go around. Use Handpan to run around. I thought that was a really well done dungeon.
Didn't you try to do the optional boss in that one with just Rudy as well?
Oh, the Grim Reaper guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
See, I really liked Malduke as well, like the final dungeon, because it was kind of like every other room had bits for each character to do. So you had to constantly swap around. Although I did, and if you're going to hate me, Scott, I crossed the bridge, the point of no return, and I hadn't picked up the guitar.
Oh, really?
So I then couldn't go fight the 2 optional bosses.
Oh, sad.
I was just stuck. I was just like, I've missed the last tool of the game. I know, but I missed the last tool of the game. That killed me more than not being able to fight the last 2 bosses.
If it makes you feel better, I also missed it and did not do the last 2 bosses.
You wouldn't have done it anyway.
Yeah. Let's not lie. But yeah, I love the tools. I felt they made it really, really fun. Even though some of them felt extremely pointless, like the vase,
Yeah.
the magic rod. Like that was
Cecilia
fun,
had the worst ones.
Yeah, but she also had the
Oh,
stopwatch.
Rudy had the running
power
boots.
of time. No, skates.
Those skates were like, how many times did you use the skates?
All the time. Because you wouldn't get in encounters while you were skating, so you'd use them to get yourself.
Oh no, that's genius.
Yeah,
I'd bomb it around all the dungeons and just wouldn't mind if I had to take a couple of extra steps from hitting a wall because you'd get there so much quicker anyway, and there'll be no encounters.
Oh, that is exactly what I did.
Never would have thought of that.
Yeah, man, they were brilliant.
I think I read that in a guide or something, and I did like make use of that technique at somewhere just because I was like not doing so hot.
Oh, I would have
for some reason.
I would have.
But on the other hand, I never used his radar.
Oh,
really?
I used that in every dungeon in every town just to make sure I got every item.
Oh yeah, I never used it. Yeah.
No, I just walked around and clicked on everything. Smashed the button as you're walking around. Classic style. That's what that is.
That's what I did too until I got the radar. And actually, it was a while after that because I, for some reason, I got the radar and then promptly forgot about it for a long time. But then once I remembered, I was like, "Oh, this thing is awesome! You don't have to check every day."
Yeah, it was nice to know that there were no more items in that area when you don't hear the ping.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that's when I found out the thing on the guide as well. Because I was trying to find out whatever that last eye was to get into the final bit of the Malduke dungeon. And it was like hidden behind a grave, and it was just like, it's hidden behind this grave. If you're having trouble, just use the radar like you've been using the whole game. It's just like, I have not. Another
thing that since we're talking about tools, Cecilia has the stopwatch, which lets you just reset the puzzles in the room if you fuck it up.
Yeah, so I only had to, outside of like the dungeons where you had to use it, I only used that one other time, and it's because I was in one area that had like, there was water, I don't know what the hell you call them, water ducts, and aqueducts. Yes, for the bathrooms. And I just held down the run button, stopped paying attention, looked back over, and I was just in one of the like sewage drains. It's like, no, you couldn't get out of it. There's no way, no area for you to get out of it. And I was like, Discord, help me. Do I have to reload? And Saitan's just like, use the clock.
Use the clock, man.
There was another example of that. I can't remember who it was. I think it was like either Lala or Lulu. Forget exactly. One of the girls that follows us on Twitter. But there's this part where Zed tries to trap you in a room, and if you like hit the wrong switch, he actually does. And she had forgotten about the stopwatch or didn't know about it, so she was like pissed and like had to reset the game and replay like a large chunk of the dungeon. It was like, oh, that hurts my soul.
Yeah, I had to look that up too.
Right.
Yeah, I had to look that up. I reset about 4 times on that, and I was like, no, I'm not getting this. And then when I read it, I was like, of course.
These games are too clever for me.
One of the last tools you get is the Guitar of Maya. I think you can miss it, like Bill was saying. But basically the only use for that is to trigger optional bosses. So that seemed like just they were trying to think of like one last thing to add.
Well, you can, because don't you need that in the Abyss as well for something?
To trigger, I think you need it it's either to get in or to trigger the optional boss at the end.
I think to trigger an optional boss at the end of the Abyss, you need it, but because to get in, you need the power glove to punch the pyramid. But it is missable. But obviously, when you get to the final boss room, you can walk past it and then go back down, and then come back up and go through the dungeon again and pick it up, which is actually what I did.
Yeah.
I went back down, came straight back up, redid the dungeon, got the guitar, and then went and killed the last boss. It's just like, I'm not finishing this game without having all the tools, even if I'm not going to bloody use it.
Right. Yeah. So I've got a list of dungeons here for us to look through. Is there any like ones in particular that anybody wants to call out?
I think another honorable mention would be that godforsaken block. What was it? Was it the Dragon Shrine?
I think so.
Where you had to push the blocks at just the right area, but there's no depth perception in 2D games, so you just like okay, push it and then push it down and then push it left, and it doesn't like click. You have to like push it down, but like just right before it's all the way down, and then push it left. That really screwed me up.
Yeah, it looks like the spot where those blocks goes is the perfect size for the block, but it's actually just slightly wider.
Yeah, I emulated this game too, so I was like, oh god, is it glitching? Like, am I over? Is it done? Am I done for?
Yeah. One thing that stands out to me, De La Metallica, there's a puzzle where you have to like read bookshelves in a certain order and then not open certain chests.
Oh my god!
And the way
I forgot about that.
The way
I had a huge rant about it on
written
Discord as well.
doesn't make any sense.
If I didn't have a guide, I would not have known.
I actually went as deep as to look, like not just look it up in a guide, which just said open up, chest 3, 4, and 5, whatever it was. I actually went and looked up how you were supposed to work that out, because I did complete this game when I was younger and I didn't have a guide. So I was like, I must have worked this out somehow, or I just randomly opened chests until I got it right. But,
young Bill was very smart, and then the young adult years came through and just wiped everything out.
Yeah, all gone.
And then right after that, there's a part where you have to it gives you a series of picking between the left door or the right door to get to the end of the dungeon. And even though I had the guide, I somehow messed up at the very beginning of the puzzle. And so I was like, well, now the directions that the guide's given me are going to be wrong, and I have no idea where I am. So I was stuck there for 20 minutes.
Didn't you have to read something? It would give you do you feel courage? Yes, take the left door. No, take the right door. Something like that. Yeah,
but
I don't know. I just kind of went through that first time, but I really liked the design of De La Metallica. All cool. That sort of weird staircase stuff. I like ones like that. I like the ancient temple in Final Fantasy VII. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not even a big fan of that picture, but I really like it when I do dungeons are based off of it.
I think we all mentioned that we liked the grappling hook stuff, and especially in the Wandering Isle where you're going from island to island.
There's a Spider-Man.
I've mentioned a couple times that there's another harder version of that in the optional Abyss dungeon. And that made me rage. I probably fell into that pit 30 to 40, 50 times.
You did the Abyss dungeon, didn't you, Dave?
Yeah, that was the one with the very tiny, you had basically a character's width around each grappling hook point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did that one. I struggled. I don't think I fell off as many times as Scott did, but there were a few times, definitely. But the Abyss one was very short. Wasn't that only a 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't too long, especially considering it was supposed to be the super dungeon or whatever.
I was surprised how short that was.
Right.
No, that's quite disappointing. I assumed the Abyss was going to be some sort of long, hard dungeon, so I just gave it a miss.
Yeah, I was surprised how quickly it went by.
Yeah, I also assumed that and decided not to do it. That's why.
Sand River sucks. It's too dark. I can't see anything.
Anything where you have to light candles, I'm not about. I hate that.
There's a part where you have to drop off of a ledge, but you have to drop off in a certain spot to where the Sand River takes you to the right.
Oh, either
point.
left or right. Yeah.
Oh. But yeah, I think that's about all that super stands out to me. Was there any dungeons that you really liked or hated, Dave, that we didn't already go over?
I actually like the Sand River one.
Fuck me.
I didn't. Mainly because I don't think I got caught in the a loop at all. I was able to somehow luckily go through it correctly the first time. But I
did too, but with a guide. A guide told me exactly what to do, and I was in there for it was a 3-minute dungeon for me.
But yeah, the other one that you mentioned, the De La Metallica one, I struggled with the doors too, where I goofed at the beginning, and then all the choices that I thought were correct were incorrect, and I was stuck at that spot for 20, 30 minutes as well.
I'm sorry that happened to you, but it makes me feel better.
I have to assume it happened to a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay, so another element is money, which the only reason I mentioned this up, it's called Jella in this game, or Giella.
Chilla, chilla.
It works just like in every other RPG. The only reason I bring it up is because I felt like it was really scarce in like the first third or so of the game.
I never had issues.
I think that's because if you were trying to pump money into upgrading Rudy's arms,
Yep, that's
it would
what I was
skim you.
doing.
Well, I didn't.
I
I didn't
didn't
even
bother.
buy. I didn't buy any new weapons or anything up until like leading up to some dungeon where it's like at the top of the tower and you fight like a dragon thing or like a wyvern or whatever the heck it was. I think it's the first time you're introduced to Alcazar. Alhazad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I didn't buy anything until like up until that point.
Yeah, it's Cage Tower.
See, I was trying to like buy every time I hit a new town, just buy them out as far as like the equipment goes. And towards the beginning of the game, there's a few points where you are doing towns like almost back to back. It feels like
That's where you screwed up, Scott.
Yeah.
Well, no, because that really worked for me. I would blow all my money on the new equipment, go on to the next town. By the time I got to the next town, I'd be able to sell off my old equipment and buy new equipment, and then I'd be on to the next town.
That was probably
until eventually there was a
anything.
point. Yeah, you always hoard everything, don't you?
Yep.
But yeah, it was eventually when I got to the point where I got to a town that I'd already been to, so I suddenly had a load of money left over. So I was like, all right, I'm going to upgrade one of Rudy's arms, and I just went, all right, rocket launcher. Just pumped every penny I had into it, and then suddenly Rudy was just like a boss killer. It was just like, wow, I've really made him overpowered.
Right. I did use the duplicator trick to get money towards the end of the game because I just wanted to finish upgrading everything. But that's the only thing I used it for. Because I didn't want to fight those stupid Heyo Contins on that island for like 3 years.
I couldn't even get into a battle with one. I tried for a good 20 minutes and like one didn't show up. I was like, I can't be asked for this. Same with Leviathan. I tried to fight Leviathan for 20 minutes and she didn't show up. I was like, oh, it's just, I haven't got time in my life to do this anymore.
The game does have a world. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what did you guys think of the airship?
Loved it.
I can't remember what the name of it was, but yeah, I did too. It felt like
the metal bird, wasn't it?
Bird.
Yeah.
They call it the proto wing at first, and then once it's fully upgraded, it's the gull wing. So.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
But it felt like it had the same, like it was dashing around the world map, just like you would dash around a town, and then that you could change the altitude from higher to mid to low. I thought was pretty clever too.
Yeah, I love that because you could skim across the water, and then when you come to a landing, you could do like skid landings.
Yep.
Again, it's just so much fun having a little skid.
I actually did really like the airship.
Yeah, it was a small little detail that was nice.
I cannot think of that many games with like overworld maps that have some sort of mechanic to where you can traverse over mountains. I don't know, maybe I'm just forgetting everything, but I don't remember like many times where it's like, oh, usually mountains are insurpassable in my head.
Yeah, it looked cool, and that's a great segue because there is a world map in this game. It's pretty standard fare for RPGs. I did find like the way the camera zooms in and out on you to be weird based on like how close you are to a location. I just felt like it was kind of wonky.
No, I kind of like that because then, as you got close, if like, especially like the ones that were like hidden in the deserts, like Maze of Death, and it's like, oh, yeah. I'm close.
You would never
maybe to the left, maybe to the right.
And then I was surprised the first time I saw like an actual person on the world map. I was like, holy shit, you never see that in RPGs.
Yeah. Because weren't there were a couple merchants too traveling the world that you could buy from.
Yep. And then along with the airship, there's the Earth Golem, which kind of just is a very slow means of travel, but it was very welcome just because of, no encounters. I guess the last thing with the Overworld is just the mini games. So we'll go over those real quick. What did you think about them, Bill? Bill.
Oh, sorry, my mute got stuck on. The mini games. Which mini games? What, the ones in the
festival?
In the festival. Yeah. Oh, the festival, yeah. So obviously there was the running one, which trained you up for a mission later on in life. There was the weird whack-a-mole one where you had to kind of pick up and throw moles.
That was the one I couldn't do, or could not get the best score on, or whatever.
I failed miserably at the one where you had to run stop next to a wall.
Oh, that one was easy.
I just failed miserably at that over and over again. So I got too frustrated with it. It's like I can't be bothered. And then I think there was one where you had to like throw a ball into like a target zone.
Apparently that one's just totally random. Like, I think maybe Mini BT was telling me that there's a strategy to it, but I don't believe him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw a strategy to that as well somewhere, but I was just like, I think I tried to follow one as well, and I just missed every time. It's just like, I can't be bothered with this. So eventually I just went and spent all my money on the flower girl in the middle and bought the flowers so I could raise my luck.
Yeah. Did you do any of the mini games there, Dave? I know Jay did.
I think, just the running into the wall one, and then all the other ones, the mall one I didn't even attempt.
Gotcha. Well, is there anything else just about the Overworld gameplay that I've neglected to list here or anything? I can't think of anything else.
I feel like we also talked about the dungeons in this with the Overworld.
Oh yeah, the dungeons are just there for our reference. But
so I'm also going to say real quick that the Overworld section is really going to like improve my overall score. I feel like this game had so much potential for me to just like totally love it because it was very fun to play. I usually with games that I'm not super into the story, I'm usually just done with. Like I can't, no matter how fun any other aspect is, I just do not care about it. But this game, I had a lot more fun in between the cutscenes than I did like actually doing main plot sections. So I just felt like that was an honorable mention.
Yeah, I could see that. There were some parts of like the dungeons, just like the random encounter rate, that I was like, "Oh my god, can this be over?"
Yeah,
but...
I had some issues with the encounters, but since we're about to move on to like menus and battles, that actually be a pretty good segue into menus and battles. But I thought the battles in general were really fun. So I'm purposefully I'm gonna go ahead and merge menus and battles because now I feel like talking about the battles.
Okay.
But real quick, so
he's gone rogue.
There are menus. So there are the crest graphs. You like learn magic, the shops and stuff. Very, very, very like vanilla RPG. The crest, the way you handle learning magic is a lot different. Like usually you just buy magic. This time you have to have like crest graphs, and then you like have some like really random description of like something you think it might be what you want, but you're not totally sure, but you get it anyway, and you can rename your spell. I love
renaming. I love renaming the spells. I kept all the spells this time round to the actual names that it gave us, so that we wouldn't get confused when we were talking on Discord and stuff. But when I was younger, I used to name them things like Fire Dick, so you'd hit enemies when you fire.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, I really liked the crest graph system in general. I thought it was kind of like a unique spin on how to learn magic. It sort of made you pick and choose. The only thing was the descriptions of what they actually do were like they sucked. So
yeah. So with that going into the battles with magic, I did not use magic that often. I feel like I used like maybe 4 spells total.
Yeah, there's a lot of useless ones.
So because of that, I always had a ton of crest graphs, and like if I would like learn something, I'd just like destroy it. Like this isn't useful anymore.
Yeah, and then the way like there was no sort on your spells in the menu, so it was kind of like everything is disorganized.
You could sort them one at a time, I think.
I know,
but it was just like I know.
Didn't the main like item inventory had a sort. Yeah.
I believe
that would have drove me nuts otherwise. They also had an optimize your equipment, which is like so important for me. So important for me. So I thank the developers for that.
Did you like the magic learning system, Dave?
Yeah, and I liked the the secret signs that you get to decrease the amount of whatever I can't remember what it was called. Was it just MP that Jack?
Yeah, it was just Jack's MP.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked doing that, and then the ability to upgrade Rudy's arms was nice. And then it seemed like each character had just one little thing that you could make
Yeah.
them better with.
I would have liked to
mean,
have gotten a lot more
Cecilia,
secret signs.
yeah, yeah, they were. You could steal a couple from Lady Harkin, but I think a lot of them were just found randomly. I don't know if any regular enemy dropped them.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of sealed doors around the world which you can open up with duplicator keys.
Yep,
And
that's
there was
right.
quite a few hidden behind those doors, but it was whether you wanted to waste those keys, because then you'd have to go fight those Haradukan things on that island and steal them, steal duplicator keys off of them to
I
make up
also
for the
ended up
ones that you've
duplicating
lost.
duplicating the
You
duplicators.
son of a bitch.
Cause that was the only way
Making
to
me so
get
angry,
extra.
Scott, do you want to describe the duplication glitch as you abused it?
Sure. Basically, you just use if I remember right, you use two of the same item in battle, and then on the third character, you switch the item you want to duplicate with the item that the other two characters used, as far as like sorting in the menu. And that just gives you like 255 of the item. So
You
Does that
just
work with-
love.
Does that work with any item?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah, because you can even do it with
Okay.
the apples that increase your stats. I never did because I felt like that was too far. It's like going into like cheating territory. But
We know someone who did it.
yeah, we do.
Mhm.
Colin.
Colin.
He's
Bragging
clearly
about
gone
his
for it.
his times.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Those type of bugs always are like super duper interesting to me
Yeah.
because it's like goes into like computer sciencey stuff like integer overflow and stuff like that. I don't know. I always find it really neat that these little bugs make their way into games that everyday ordinary humans go and play.
Right. And then there's also shops where you can upgrade Rudy's guns, where you just each of the arms / guns that he has, you pay for, 3 different stats. What it's like: attack, defense, capacity, and accuracy, or something like that.
Yep.
No,
yeah.
no defense. But why would you have defense on a weapon? But
I think
It was only
just-
worth
yeah,
it, the rocket launcher.
Yeah. So
Would you
did
say
you guys
that-
not upgrade all of them?
No, I think I had like 2 or 3 which I upgraded, and that was it. The rocket launcher was
Oh.
one I just used over and over again. And then I think there was
Okay,
like some
yeah.
weird laser one at the end.
I used the money duplication right at the end to finish upgrading everything. But up until then, I was just like Bill said, just doing like whatever the strongest gun was that I had at the time, which
Well,
was you get the rocket launcher pretty early. So
yeah. Oddly enough, I don't think I used a single bullet clip to actually refill his ammo. I would always go to the guy that would do that in one of the towns. But
I used a
I never
few.
got to a point where I ran out.
I used auto battle and that thing just emptied out the clips as fast as it could. So
I think that's it for the menus, though. So now you can talk about the battles, Jay.
3D animated battles as opposed to 2D. Not the greatest. I wasn't too ecstatic about that.
They
Again,
look
this
like-
is one of the first forays into 3D battles.
I know.
Yeah, so
You haven't got much else to compare
I'll
this
be
against.
gentle, but I didn't enjoy it. I would have rather had 2D. Like I respect their attempt at a revolution, but I didn't like it.
Yeah. I mean, at least in Final Fantasy, feel like the battle graphics in Final Fantasy VII look a lot better than this game's. But that's just me.
Yeah,
I know this
this
was
game,
before FF7, but
this game's battle character models look like the character models from the Overworld of Final Fantasy VII. I mean,
oh
they're
yeah,
just that big and blocky.
yeah for sure. And it's like
But
it's
I
very
did like
telling.
Cecilia's dance at the end, though, when you won.
Oh yeah, it was very telling how towards the end of the game, it gives you the credits and shows you like different artwork of the different characters. A lot of them I was like, oh, that's what they're supposed to look like.
Yeah, so the battles in this game, it has random battles and experience points, all very, very vanilla RPG. You have magic, you have summons, which I did not use. I didn't equip what the hell are they called?
Runes.
A rune until like past mid game. Like it blew completely over my head that it was like once I got out of that tower where you get the first 3, I just forgot that they existed.
They were pretty powerful.
Yeah, they were. I was very upset with
anyway.
myself.
Well, no, they were great. They were great for helping with Jack's strength stats and Rudy's defense stats. And then with Cecilia, I'd always give her. There was one that gave her loads and loads of magic boost, which I would use. And then whenever I got into a boss fight, I'd switch it out for, I think, the Saint Rune, which did holy damage. And then if you use that on like the demon bosses, it did ridiculous amounts of damage.
Holy in general, like I spammed the hell out of that, especially with those demon battles. It was awesome.
One thing that kind of annoyed me with the summons though was like Cecilia was the only one that had a magic stat high enough to make it worth using them. So even though Jack and Rudy could summon them, there was like no point in doing so.
I don't know. I felt like for me at least they were on par, but I also spent like 0 time boosting Rudy's arms, so like he wasn't doing too hot.
Having Rudy's arms boosted made using a summon not worth it. Because he was just doing 2,000 plus damage from like early game.
We kind of already ragged him on about how there's like 20,000 summons in the game, so I feel like I probably
25. I looked it up earlier. I forgot.
Oh my god, I didn't.
There was 25 summons.
I thought we were exaggerating slightly, but apparently not.
I just used the base 3. I did not. Once I equipped them, I did not change them out.
Yeah. So I feel like I saw like maybe half of them. I'm not even sure I saw that many. Just because you can only use the one that you have equipped. So.
Yeah, I think I used about 5 or 6 in total.
Well,
it was mainly the
one.
It was also kind of weird. So the general battle menus in my opinion, they break away from the stereotype. So you have like this initial menu where it's like, what do you like? You can like switch out. Yeah, you can like switch out your equipment. You can like do the battle. You can change the like auto battle status. So you could do something else. I don't remember what the other one. Flee, maybe? No, maybe not Flee.
Yeah, there was Flee.
And so once you hit battle, then you go through each character's like attack, magic, item, etc., etc. So I thought that was really unique, especially the auto battle portion of that first menu, because I used auto battle very, very often. Like 98% of the time I was using auto battle. It
never
played the game
auto battle once.
It did better than I would have. I'm telling you that right now. It played the game way better than I ever could have. But then
I tried it once.
Yeah, I used it very heavily, especially on. Go ahead.
Does it give you options, or is it strictly auto, or can you choose different tactics?
You can have different tactics, like all out. All I remember is all out because that's mainly what I used. The one that I used for Cecilia was like basically like focus mainly on healing, but do some attacks whenever nobody needs healed.
Okay.
So it does give you like different tactical selections. Not a whole lot, but a few of them.
I think the Lunar series had that too, where you could do just auto battle AI or choose all defend, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a really big fan of that, especially for pretty much all the random battles, because I felt like I had a random battle all the time. So that was very helpful with keeping me sane, and with those like crunch times at 6 a.m. where I would have just been spamming the X button anyway.
Well, also a lot of times like I would just mash attack and then like not be paying attention because doing that was so boring. And then I'd turn and look at the screen and like, oh, I'm about to die, or in a few cases I did die.
Yeah, that also happened to me, which is why I decided to use auto battle, so at least I had somebody healing. So once you get past that, fleeing was basically useless. I maybe successfully fled 2 times.
I don't know how Saitan put up with that for so long. Trying to flee from every battle, just not happening. It affects your luck stack as well if you fail. and it gradually lowers your entire team's luck, which then makes it even harder to escape the battles.
It's broken. It's
Did you
a
try to
broken
escape
fleet
very
system.
much, Dave?
I think I tried it once and it didn't work, so I never did it again. I was like, okay, I'll just mash the X button.
I feel like that's kind of my methodology with any RPG game, with like battles like that. I will enter a battle. I'll try to flee. If I fail, then I know what's up. I know how this game's gonna be. But if that first one succeeds, then it's like okay.
This game makes you think you've actually successfully flee, and then it restarts the battle.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the flee works, and it goes, "You were too slow." Yeah, sucks you back in. It's just like you.
And then they just attack you. Yeah, it's garbage.
Because one of the things as well that I didn't get until, because I said I used the bit where you could change equipment on the bosses, so that I'd change Cecilia from using her thing that gave a really high magic so that she was able to heal my party, and then when I needed to, I'd swap the summon one out so that I could summon the better summon to hit the boss with. But what I didn't do was the goat doll trick, which I knew about from about 2/3 left of the game, but I just kept forgetting about it every time. And there was a couple of times where I wiped on bosses and I was just like, I forgot to use the goat dolls. Because if you just quickly swapped out whatever your accessory was for a goat doll, if your character dies, the goat doll instantly reses them. And I think, Scott, does it give you 4 hit points?
I don't remember, but I remember thinking it was really, hacky, like cheesy kind of.
Yeah,
I did not ever use a goat doll.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was going to be cheesy, but then it was always like, I died against Mother Freed or whatever her name was, and I remember thinking, I should have just used the goat doll. I knew I was going to die the next round.
the super boss in Abyss, just because he did he started out with like a wipe attack, but then I was able to do the rest without him. What else is about the battles here?
The noises that the enemies made.
Oh, they
sound
awful.
like cats when you hit them.
Did you guys ever play the Super Nintendo Lion King game?
Yes.
The cat noise that the enemies make sounds exactly like young Simba's roar noise in that game. Like, it's uncanny. I almost wonder if that's like a stock sound effect that was pulled.
It is really bad. And even if it doesn't look like a cat, it's still you're still stepping on like a cat.
Another interesting thing about the enemies is a lot of times it looked like they didn't give them idle animations, so it's just like a static model that's just standing there on screen. It looks really weird.
So with the battle system, you have the magic, and then you have like skills, and then you have the force techniques, where whenever you take enough damage or something, it like gradually increases this force bar, and then you have like different tiers, like you have like 3 different attacks that'll each one takes more than the other. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Jax, I felt like Jax was pretty much the only useful ones outside of Cecilia's, like the making items affect all 3 people instead of just the one. I thought that was incredibly useful.
Yeah, that was really useful early game until she got magic that could heal everyone for a lot better. But yeah, being able to use a potion berry to heal everyone in the party was really useful. And then again, your second level was the summons, and then they all had an individual 3rd level. I think Cecilia's was high summon. Am I right?
Yeah. I don't know if I ever used anybody's 3rd.
Oh, Jax was great. It absolutely just like pounded something really hard.
That's unfortunate.
Did a lot of damage, and then Ruddy's was like a protector or something, where he would just reduce the damage that you would take.
And his 4th one was like make your arm attack do like 4 times the damage, which was awesome.
Yeah.
If you ever got that high.
I used I don't know if it was his first one, the fully locked or the locked on one for 100% accuracy. I used that a lot for his arms.
There was no reason not to. A lot
yeah.
of times.
Yeah. Did you guys already mention Jack's accelerator?
No, I don't.
That I think that was his first tier, and that was really useful for those boss battle, like the boomerang ones, where like no matter what, everybody's get faster than you. I thought that was a really useful one to kind of try and get you out of a pinch.
See, I always saved up for the higher levels. I don't think I ever used Accelerator, but that does
So
sound very
I would
useful.
always use it as like, oh crap, so-and-so's about to die. These people are faster than me. Jack, you're going to have to use a potion.
That's brilliant, Jay. I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah, or Heal Blade.
Yeah, or a heal blade.
But speaking of Jack's techniques, did any of you guys have problems learning the techniques?
I was on auto battle, so I don't even know what happened.
His last one seemed to take forever, where I was beginning to think that it was glitched and not going to unlock. But other than that, I don't recall the other techniques taking too long.
Yeah, the last couple made me wonder, like, is there some other additional mechanic to make these unlock that I'm not aware of? But
I'm pretty sure I ended with 3 or 4 ones that were like partially learned.
yeah. Bill, do you know what that luck stat is? I know, like, you can raise it in the menu with your flowers, but I have no idea what it actually does.
So luck would it would increase the amount of random. So if you had bad luck, it would increase the amount of random encounters you had, and it would also increase the chances of you getting like really tough random encounters.
Oh.
Like, I think I walked into the photosphere and everyone had their worst luck. And the fight I got into was the first fight wiped me, and it was ridiculous. There were so many of those creatures that put your team to sleep. And it was just an absolute pain. And so when I loaded up my save, I then used a bunch of my wild flowers to bring my luck back up. And I never got that same battle encounter again with that,
Right.
with like that enemy layout. And I was just like, well, it also affects how quickly your force meter raises up. And I don't think we mention condition green once you get up to level 4 of your force bar.
Nope.
I have no idea what that is.
So if you've got any status effects on your party, by the time you get to the 4th level, which is the final bit, and so you've completely filled up your force bar, you get condition green, which cures you of all status effects.
I had no idea. The things I wish I knew yesterday. No.
Yeah, because I was asleep all the time and pissed all the time. So
well, that was
Great
the thing.
segue.
It would wake you up from sleep. Yeah, I was going to talk about sleep next.
Go ahead.
So yeah, the sleep mechanic is ridiculous. Once they put you to sleep, nothing will wake you up. Now you can counteract it. I can't remember what the name of the spell is, but Celia has a spell that will wake you from being asleep.
Lock state, I think is what you're
yes.
thinking of.
But if you cast that spell while your entire party's awake, when someone does cast sleep on you and it works, that spell will enact straight away and wake you up. So when you are against, I think it's Lilithia, you have to make sure you're using that spell before she casts sleep on you to keep your party awake.
I think if I had to pick one thing as my most hated thing about this game, it would be the status effects. They just suck in this game.
status effects always suck, first of all, and then this game I felt like kind of took it to a next level. Because I also could never get good status effects to affect anybody that I would want to have bad status effects on, except for like defense down. The defense down stuff I thought was pretty useful.
Yeah, I never bothered with it. Oh yeah, no, armor down.
I did that against like every boss.
Oh yeah, sorry, no, armor down.
Same-
that was
same
a
here.
guaranteed one for all the bosses. But I mean, status effects, just couldn't bother with them. Like you say, I think there was only 4 or 5 spells. There was like a lightning spell that hit everything. There was a wind spell that hit everything. Armor up, armor down.
Yeah.
The healing one, which I think was called Remedy.
Oh yeah.
If I remember rightly, which was very confusing from playing too many Final Fantasy games over the years.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yes, Remedy cured everyone for a lot, especially when you had Celia's best magic book, which you could steal, or whatever it was, from Daily Metallica, and whatever the rune was I was using that gave her max magic. She had like 450 points, which I don't think I had any other stat anywhere near that high.
It's insane.
And yeah, so that Remedy thing was supposed to give like a little bit of healing to the whole party, but it would just heal my entire party.
Yeah. To max.
It was great.
And like
Yeah.
Bill said, the sleep thing, there's some enemies that can put it on your entire party, and it's just you're fucked. There's no like accessory that prevents it or anything like that. So I was raging at a few points.
There is the Libra accessory, but I don't think you get that until after you've been to like the land of the eels. Eels?
Gotcha. It's too little,
Hello?
too late. So I've got a list of bosses down here. Is there any like ones you guys want to call out in particular?
No, not really. Other than Boomerang and Lucide always being a big pain in the tuchus, I didn't really have too many issues with any of them.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think they're just the storyline bosses. I don't really remember having difficulty with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't do any grinding. Even the optional bosses were pretty much a joke, other than like maybe what was it? Chaos, the first optional one in that dungeon, or that early dungeon.
Yep. Yeah.
So I guess overall thoughts about the battle system?
I liked it.
I also liked it.
I mean, kind of generic, but it wasn't terrible.
I enjoyed it for the most part.
Yeah,
I found it kept my attention.
That's the thing for me is like there's a lot of like inner like mingling mechanics in the battle system that makes it a little bit unique from other RPGs. But a lot of the times mashing attack was just enough, and so I found a lot of times I was pretty bored by the battles. Like I would start doing other things while I autoed through them.
Yep. But yeah, the only time I would employ a strategy would be a boss fight. But yeah, random battles, you just X button or auto battle. That's what I should have been doing.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the battle system? All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all the mechanics. So I guess we'll go into like overall thoughts here. For me, I didn't really know what I was getting into going into this. I'd just heard lots of things about Wild Arms and how good it was and all that. And I'd been hearing about it for a long time now. So I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew it was supposed to be like a Western RPG, which it ended up not being Western themed very much. But
Please, it's got Western music.
Yeah.
Calamity Jane.
Yeah. He's got a cowboy hat and a talking mouse.
Yeah, I'm glad we
It's
played
vital.
it, but about the 2/3 point, I was like wishing it was over. It's like, okay, can we go ahead and get to the end now? So overall, I would say that I generally enjoyed the game, but it's not one of my favorites. But I am glad we played it. It's like now I have that experience under my belt. It's good for us people who tend to only play Final Fantasy to like put out our branches and stuff. What about you, Jay?
So let's just say I'm very glad we did this for the RPG club. And I've said this, I don't know, 2 or 3 times now within this review. I would have really, really liked this game. At least I think I would have liked this game a lot more 12 years ago, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, whatever. But playing it now, I struggled. There were a lot of struggles that I had. I procrastinated really bad just because I didn't necessarily have loads of fun. If I were to sit back and think objectively about it, I would say that it is a fun game. But I think that I don't know. It's not the game. It's me in some way. I think the game had a lot of really good things going for it, but I don't know if I'm just not liking it or if it's just not like a super great game.
It's also hard to put yourself back in that time, like remembering how long ago it came out.
Yeah. Remember how you felt when you were 2 years old.
Right.
Yeah, I have to run the dog out real quick.
Sure.
He's pacing. I'll be right back.
Sure. So I guess I'll ask you the opposite version of the question, Bill. As someone who played it before, like, did your feelings change a lot? Going back to it and replaying it.
I would say yes. I definitely not as badly as Saitan, but I don't hold it on the same pedestal as I used to. I very fondly remember playing the game back in 1998, whenever it was, and yeah, I still think it's a good game, but it's definitely. I used to think it was brilliant. Like in my head, in my nostalgia glasses, I used to think, "Wow, Wild Arms is a great game." I would suggest that to people, but now it's just like it's all right. It's a fun RPG. It works. It does what it needs. It does what it needs to do. It's got a reasonable story. It's reasonably entertaining with the battle system, but it's just kind of I'd say it's an average RPG overall.
I feel like this game
stuff I've played.
I feel like this game had so many good ideas that I absolutely love, like the use of tools, like the way it used tools, the way you character switch, the battle system as well. I feel like it had all of these really, really good ideas that I would love to still see, but everything combined just didn't do it for me.
Well, they switch it up later on in the series. I think 4 and 5 has a completely different battle system. And everyone says those are the best ones.
Right.
But at the same time, from what I remember of, I think it was Wild Arms 3, you get to ride on a horse on the world map.
Oh,
Okay, I'm back.
That's awesome. I do.
Yeah, just in the nick of time.
hey, you're right. We kind of already asked you this question earlier, as far as like how did your feelings change about the game? But I guess like now overall, like how do you feel about it, Dave?
Yeah, well, I definitely liked it more when I was younger, but I can appreciate it for that it was made, back in when did you say it was released? 99?
96, right?
96?
96
Okay.
in Japan.
Yeah, so I can appreciate it in its time, but it was worth a replay. But I don't think I would replay it again. But I would play the remake, the Alter F, just to see how they improve upon it.
I am kind of morbidly curious, being honest here. Glutton for punishment. But okay, I think that about wraps up just our gameplay discussion. So I guess we should move on to our ratings. Okay, so our categories for ratings are story, combat, non-combat, graphics, music, and overall feel. So I'll go first for story. Like I said, I feel like there's a lot of good ideas and there is a good story in there, but I don't feel like it's, at the end of the day, it comes together quite as they probably intended. I think I'm going, and the writing is just, and translation is just approaching atrocious, in my opinion. I'm going to give it a 6. You're next, Bill.
So overall, the story, I feel I kind of enjoy it. I didn't really have any problems with the translation so much, but I think it's mostly because I'm illiterate and I can't read. Yeah, I just enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it a 7. Love the bad guys.
Jay.
So that's a good point. I will say, first of all, my favorite part about the story is absolutely the bad guys and Handpan.
He's a sentient mouse.
The only sentient animal in the game for some reason.
Why?
So, I feel like so Scott, the translation is really bad from what I can tell. And I feel like they tried so many things, had so many strands, and there just wasn't a whole lot of resolution with most of those strands. I usually try to rate game stories based on like what they were aiming to do. but I feel like what they did not achieve what they were aiming to do, though. I feel like it really fell flat. So I'm also going to give it a 6.
All right, Dave.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning to. Is just the storyline was kind of average, and it felt too unfocused. So I would give it a 6 as well.
Okay. Combat, so the battle system. I'm kind of torn on this one because I feel like it's not a bad battle system, but like I said, I also found it pretty boring. I wish some of the enemies were a little bit harder. Maybe not the enemies, but like the bosses, especially in the later half, they start to get super easy. But like I said, there's a lot of good ideas here, and I like how they sort of all intermingle together. I'll give it a 7. Bill.
Yeah, again, I have a huge issue with games being too easy, and this game definitely in the second half became too easy, and at some points in the first half too hard. But I'm going to go with a 6 for the combat.
Oh wow, okay.
It was enjoyable, but I don't like it when things don't become a challenge at the end. I need a good X-Def.
Yeah, I did not grind at all, and I beat the super boss on my first try. So
yeah, I did no grinding whatsoever, and I didn't have any problems towards the end, and that troubles me.
Right. Okay, Jay.
So I'm probably going to shock people here, but I feel like all of these good ideas that I've mentioned a couple times really, really do a lot for the battle system. I do wish the enemies were like the random enemies were better. I feel like that's the main flaw, and that's why I didn't necessarily have a lot of fun, because they were either really annoying or just kind of garbage. But generally speaking, all of the different like systems that it has, I really liked. Lots of good ideas. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8, because I would say I like this battle system better than the first 4 Final Fantasies, and I really like those games.
I think that's fair. Dave.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a result of how I played the game, but it seemed like when I wasn't just mashing the X button, it was just using Rudy's arms to kill the bosses. And the magic with Cecilia, all I really used was healing spells. So I didn't really venture out too much in the combat. I don't know. I'd probably give it a 6.
I will also say the auto battle is absolutely one of my points there.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, that is should now be an essential for any RPG.
True. Non-combat, so the overworld and the towns and the dungeoneering and all that stuff. I do think this is, like Jay was saying, one of the game's strong points. For the most part, it is fun to go through the dungeons and all that. There's a couple like bitch dungeons that I did not like at all, but I think I'll give this one an 8. The tools are fun to use. It's I think more fun to explore in this game than most RPGs of its time. So, Bill.
10.
10.
10.
Shit.
This game is great when it comes to overworld exploration. Exploration, you get to ride a giant robot around the world map, you get a cool flying bird, you get all your tools, you've got the sprinting, the running. I could almost mark it down for the pirate ships, but I don't care. 10. I thought it was brilliant. It was just an absolute fun game to play on that aspect of things.
Okay.
Sprinting, tools, just brilliant.
Sprinting is fun.
Just brilliant.
What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I'm gonna shadow. I'm gonna give it an 8. I really enjoyed all the tools. And the fun dungeons for me are
The Fungeons.
the Fungeons are better than like the bad ones. Like I feel like the good dungeons make up for the bad dungeons. And I just thought it was so cool, like some of the way that you had to use your tools and use the character switching. This is another area of the game that had so many good ideas, and it could be so much better if like game developers now kind of took those ideas, like the mechanics.
Yeah, for sure. Dave.
Yeah, you guys are right. The non-combat areas are definitely the high point in this game. I'm with Bill. I'd give it a 10. Just because the only time I would get frustrated with the non-combat sections were when a random battle would occur. So
the worst thing
I
about
had a blast with
non-combat
it.
is still the combat.
Yep.
Okay, so next category is graphics, which this is hard because the game, especially the battles, look like shit. But then you also have to consider when it came out. I feel like the 3D graphics in this game don't stand up even to the time that it came out, other games that were coming out. In my opinion, I could be wrong about that. I do like the sprite work on the overworld, but I mean, like I said, you can't even like really tell what your characters look like at any point. I think I'm going to take the safe route and just go right down the middle and call it a 5. Bill.
I'm kind of with you on that one. The battle graphics definitely don't really hold up much, but they were trying to do something new with a new piece of technology at the time. And I don't think they're far behind what you had in FF7, if I'm honest. I know they did a lot more with the backdrops on FF7, whereas this was kind of more like you just had a textured floor. So, and the overworld and everything else was gorgeous. I love that style. It's a tough one. I'm going to go 6. You kind of got there's just two halves to the graphics. One's amazing, one's terrible. So, 6.
Right. Yeah. Jay.
I'm going to give it a 6. But I don't think the 2D is amazing. I think it's absolutely better than the 3D, and I'm pretty okay with the 3D because it's very. I don't know if you guys have ever played any of the old school Digimon games, but it's kind of like that, and I really enjoyed those games. But I felt like the 2D, like the sprites were really, really lacking. Like you can't make out any details. Like I'm used to beautiful sprites. Like Final Fantasy VI had really good sprites. Heck, 4 had good sprites. The rest of them are 2 had really good sprites. So I don't know. I just felt like I was always struggling to make out like, okay, who's who, what's what. Like all the characters are kind of looking the same. The sprite work just wasn't good, in my opinion.
Okay. Dave.
Yeah, like you guys said, this is tough to judge because there are two sides to it. The battles are terrible looking. I understand, like Bill said, for the time, they were trying to do something new. But yeah, I really like the 2D sprites and the overall look. To me, it was a lot like Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo, but better. So I'll go with 6, just as a compromise.
Okay. Next is music, and actually, I was prepared to kind of bomb the game on this category, but I actually re-listened to the soundtrack in preparation for this review to pick out the music, and actually, it's a pretty good soundtrack. I just think the problem is in game, you only hear like the same 3 or 4 tunes over and over, and they're not the better ones. Like a lot of the cutscene or the scene music is really good. The exploration music is pretty good, and so I am going to retract what I said about this game having a bad soundtrack, but in game it kind of loses its focus. So I'll give the music and sound a 7. Bill.
I'm going to jump in there with an 8. I kind of agree with you. Like the soundtrack is incredible, but there's like a lot of those tracks only get used once.
Yeah.
And like the main theme is just absolutely insane. It should be a 10 out of 10 just for that, but I'm going to give it an 8 because there is some poor execution to some of the music.
Okay, Jay.
So I'm going to give it a 6, and I imagine there are some good songs, but I don't remember them, and I'm not going to go back and listen to the soundtrack. I just remember maybe 2 songs, and there's while like the first time you listen to the songs, okay, they're fun, they're pretty catchy. The 700th time that you listen to this song, okay, now it's really quite annoying and I don't want this. So maybe there's some good music in the soundtrack, but the execution is everything when it comes to your music experience in a game. And there just was no good execution.
Okay. Well, how'd you feel about it, Dave?
Um, well, I also really like the opening theme. That's part of the huge nostalgia reason why I like the game. Just that opening track is just phenomenal. But the rest of the soundtrack is just, I don't know, it's pretty basic. I don't know. I'd give it a 5 for me.
Okay. So overall feel, this is just like at the end of the day how we felt about the game. It's like I said, I enjoyed playing the game for the most part until like towards the end, I guess. It was fun. It was cool to go back and see a retro RPG like this. Um, but I feel like somehow it just didn't all come together for me into like a particularly pleasurable experience. So I think I am going to give overall feel a 7. I almost gave it a 6, but I feel like I enjoyed the game more than that.
I'm going to go with a 6 though there, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I definitely think it's an average RPG. I've got a lot of nostalgia for it. I've got memories of it. I did like for it, but I can't rate it any higher than a 6. I just feel like it is very average. Better than average, you know. Average should be a 5, shouldn't it? But yeah, it's good, but it's not that good.
5 out of 10 is failing. That's like you got to go take summer classes, buddy.
What about you, Jay?
So I'm gonna give it a 6 too. I think there are so many good ideas, not necessarily executed well. I really enjoyed the experience in general because of like how we decided to play the game and the community getting together to play the game. So I'll have fond memories of this Wild Arms experience, but the actual game itself, nah, no. I won't play this again. And if somebody asks me if they should play it, I'll say no, probably not. We go, here's 15 other different games that you should probably play first.
Is The Witcher 3?
What was the actual score you gave it? I missed it.
6.
Okay. And Dave.
So coming into this, before I started the replay, I would have given my overall feel of it an 8, just from nostalgia. But after playing through it, I'd probably give the overall feel a 6, as it is. I mean, there are some good parts and a lot of parts I did like, but just overall, it was kind of average.
You said a 6.
Yes.
6.
Okay. All right, and then our bonus category, which is final boss. And just for clarification, this does not count towards our final score. It's just a fun little thing we like to do. So final boss, I guess, would be Zeke Tuvai or whatever he was called. I found it really lame and unmemorable and easy. I did not think it was a good final boss. I would have rather ended with Mother Freed, probably. Although I wouldn't have given her too high of a score either. I'm going to give this one a 4.
Yeah, I didn't find him too difficult. No, I didn't find him too easy, sorry. He gave me a little bit of a challenge. I was just running low on an MP, to be honest with you. So I started spamming magic carrots, which I'd been saving up for the whole game. I'm going to give him 6.
Okay. Jay.
Yeah, I don't know. I was over the game by then. I was not, I was ready to be. By the time this homie popped up, I was like, God dang it. Come on. Come on. I should have expected this, but come on. So I'm going to give it a 4. I did not enjoy it. Like, he's only getting points for like crawling his way out of hell. That's like some pretty badassery, but yeah.
As one does. And Dave.
Yeah, until you said the guy's name, I completely forgot who the final boss even was. I'll do a 4. It was not very memorable.
Okay. So I think before we announce the ratings, did you say you needed to go, Bill?
Yes, I am about to pass out from lack of sleep as it is
Very late
quarter
for
to
him.
3 in the morning. So thank you very much, guys. Lovely to meet you, Dave.
Yeah,
And
good meeting you, Bill.
I'll see all you guys in the future for I think Sword of a Million might be my next review, or possibly Final Fantasy V.
Not us, but we will see you for FF5.
All right, guys. Laters.
Bye,
I
Bill.
love you.
Love you guys.
Okay, so the ratings. I'll just go through these real fast. For story, I gave it a 6, combat a 7, non-combat an 8, graphics a 5, music a 7, overall feel a 7, which brings it to a 40 out of 60, which is equal to 67%. And I feel like that's probably close to about how I feel about the game. Bill gave story a 7, combat a 6, non-combat a 10, graphics a 6, music an 8, overall feel a 6, which brings 43 out of 60, or 72%, and he was actually the highest rating out of all of us. Jay, I'll let you read yours.
So I gave it a 6 for story, 8 for combat, 8 for non-combat, 6 for graphics, 6 for music, and 6 for overall feel.
Which brings it to a 40 out of 60, or 67%, which is the same score as me. We're very alike, Jay.
Yes, we are.
Dave, I assume you can read.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that I have the lowest total overall score.
I am too.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that. I was like, man, like this totally just blew away Scott's only reasoning for not having the score
But
count.
yeah, so the story I gave a 6, combat was a 6, non-combat a 10, graphics 6, music 5, overall feel was a 6. So that brings total to 39 out of 60 for 65%.
And with all those scores combined, the final score is a 68% from the RPG After Years is our official score.
What's our lowest game?
I think it's Hide-A-Lide, if I remember right.
That sounds like a terrible game.
I think Bill said Bill was the only one that played it, and he said it was awful, if I remember right. I'm pulling up the master list here to see if I can see about where that places it overall. You said it was 68%, right?
1 percentage point away. 1 percentage point away.
I'm curious what the Metacritic is on it.
68%. So that puts it right above Saga Frontier, but below Castlevania 3 on our master list. So there you go. And that's about it for our Wild Arms review. Before we move on to the outro, we're going to rush through our listener feedback real quick. We didn't get very much of it. So 1085, he says, game sucks. And that's all he said until I prodded him a little bit more. He said, just didn't want to keep playing it as I was enjoying other things a lot more, and I'd already beaten it before. So he actually didn't finish, if I remember right.
So Frost said, for the longest time, I thought you were playing Wild Guns.
Is that an RPG too? I don't. I've heard of it, but
I have no idea. Soda by Bread says the music is stupid good in Wild Arms. That's all I got since I haven't played it in something like 20 years.
right. Disa, she said, I loved the RPG Club. Think it is a really neat idea. As usual, I can't come up with a single question, but I really enjoyed Wild Arms. Sections were mostly fine in length, but I think somewhat shorter sessions is maybe even better to allow people room for other games too. I think I saw her make a tweet where she rated the game like a 75 total, if I remember right. Hopefully I got that right. Since we started recording, we got a couple more. Nayu on Twitter said still not finished it, but I will in spring, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I wouldn't have tried it if it wasn't for Winter Disa playing it and getting me interested. Love the club, and while Neir isn't for me, I'm looking forward to next year's game chosen. And in the Discord, I think, let's see, Mini BT said, I don't really have any new feedback from the feedback I gave near the end of the club. One question, though, since the game is all over. Have we ever learned what a dream chaser is? Yeah, we answered that earlier. It's a drifter, basically, an adventure type person. And no, the game doesn't do a good job of explaining that. And then Dave here, he left us some feedback, and I was just like, you're going to be on the show, but here we are. I'll let you read it.
Yeah, I was just curious if everyone enjoyed playing like an older RPG for the first RPG club, or for future ones, are they looking to more play the current gen RPGs? Just kind of curious on that. Because I prefer the older ones typically versus the newer ones. Um, I don't know
So
how you guys.
here's me, Scott.
Go
I'm
ahead.
going first. So I would love to keep having older games picked for RPG Club, because I know that I will not play them otherwise, because I'm already going to play the newer RPGs. I'm certainly excited for Neir, and I hope to have like a Tales game added in. But overall, definitely would like older RPGs to keep being picked.
I'm all for a mix. I slightly lean newer just because if it's something more modern, there's a chance that Corey will be interested in it, and then it's less of a strain on my schedule to actually play these things. But I really like the fact that we jumped from like old to new here, and I think I would prefer having like a mixture of just like different games from different time periods.
Well, I mean, if we only played new ones, we'd be broke.
That's a good point. What about yourself? Well, you already said that you prefer the older.
Yeah, typically it's a nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
I'm open obviously to playing the newer ones, but I guess preference wise, older ones.
Right. It looks like you got a couple more questions there.
Oh yeah, I was curious what you guys would like, what one thing you would add to improve the game if you could, and then also if you could remove one thing from the game to improve it, what would that be?
For me, I think the main thing is I would improve the script, just the writing in general, because like I said, I feel like there is a good story in there, and I feel like it wouldn't take that much rework to make it into something compelling. As far as what would I remove, the status effects, or at least tone them down some.
Yeah.
What about you, Jay?
I completely echo. So the script certainly needs work, and I think I would say I would remove all of the like different plot points that don't have resolutions, like Calamity Jane and her love for Rudy and all that stuff. But I feel like maybe if the script was better, like that wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. See, I really liked that plot point, so I was disappointed when it didn't go anywhere. But yeah, thanks for those questions, Dave. And I guess we are ready to move on to our outro. All right, so that's it for the Wild Arms review. So we're going to wrap up here. I haven't told this to Jay yet, but Jay, what are we doing next week?
So, Scott, it looks like, unbeknownst to me, we are doing the Zelda timeline episode plus a Neir Automata RPG Club kickoff.
A couple weeks back on another episode, Jay said he would like for me to mansplain the Zelda timeline to him. And I was like, oh boy, I would love to. So yeah, look forward to that. Again, reminder for the RPG Club, start playing Neir Automata if you haven't already, assuming you're listening to this in the present. The kickoff date was October 25th. So the goal is to finish the mission called Flooded City Recon. And you have until November 8th to do that. And we would love for you to submit any of your thoughts and chat with the community as we go along with that. And before we get to the plugs, I just wanted to take one more time to thank Punch Drunk Dave. How much do we love him? Quite a lot. we really like, when people get involved in the community and contribute to the podcast. And so it's really nice to have you guest on the show, and we'd love to have you back at some point.
Yeah, I would definitely be up for that.
Do you have any plugs you want to share or anything like that, or anything
Um,
you do in the public light?
Not really. I mean, you can find me. I mean, my Twitter handle is just at PunchDrunkDave, but that's about the only online presence I have.
Okay.
Next time, you will have to give us the origin story of Punch Drunk Dave.
I'll leave mystery for the first episode here.
Okay, so please rate and review us if you have not already on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever podcasting service you have. It really helps the show out, and we would greatly appreciate it.
Yep. And do not forget our Patreon, where you have early episode access, ad-free episodes, bonus episodes like the Aftercast, and extra reviews that Scott and Corey do, as well as nominations and a little more involvement with the RPG Club. And there is much more. So patreon.com/RPG After Years.
You can also find us on Twitch, twitch.tv/RPG After Years. We're streaming now. We enjoy hanging out with you guys. You can be a part of the show. Usually Sundays at 9 a.m. Eastern, but keep an eye on our Twitter and to just see any kind of schedule announcements that end up coming up. And another way to get in touch with us, you can email us, rpgafteryears@gmail.com, if you want to submit any thoughts or feedback or anything like that.
Yep. And join us on Discord, because it's Discord, not discard.
Do not discard the Discord.
Discord, because it's pretty poppin', like lip gloss. The link can be found in the show notes or on our pinned tweet on Twitter.
Yep. And speaking of Twitter, you can find the show at RPG Years, and you can find me at the Scott Spot.
You can find me at JAYD Hizzle. You can find Bill at Metanica, METNCRXY.
You fucked that up on purpose, right?
Only on purpose halfway.
People know. And I think Dave already said you can find him at Punch Drunk Dave. And so that's about it. The first official RPG Club review is done. And the second RPG Club is already upon us. So we'd like to thank Punch Drunk Dave one more time for his inspiration, participation, and motivation.
We thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. So thanks for listening, everyone. Join us next week for the Zelda Timeline Mansplanation and the Neir Automata RPG Club Kickoff. But until then, I'm Scott.
I'm Jay.
I'm Dave.
And we'll catch you guys next time for episode 40 of the RPG After Years. Later.
Hasta la vista.
See ya.
The beast has been slain. The world has been saved. Our heroes are basking in the after years. They rest in the tavern for all to hear the tale of how they banish their fear. Revel in the peace that reigns through the land. All will know it was by our heroes' hands. Here in the after years. Here in the RPG after years. Here in the RPG after years.